Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
Do you want to hear a story? I'm not letting go.
Are you ready for this?
Follow your heart.
I'm going in!
This is
Blockbuster Punch-Up!
Welcome to Blockbuster Punch-Up. This is episode 24. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and film enthusiast, Todd G11. We're going to do the entire episode with Todd
Minion
speaking Minion speak.
Yeah.
It's going to be really compelling. It's probably going to be our best episode.
It's gonna be the most comprehensible episode.
Yeah,
that's
well,
for sure.
don't worry, everybody. We'll put subtitles below
the audio.
podcast audio.
We
It's
didn't
not
think
gonna
that
work.
one out.
We hired this whole subtitle guy.
Ugh.
What are we going to do?
Sorry, Felipe.
Yeah, you're going to have to go.
Felipe had to go.
Yeah, that was awkward. Anyway, so obviously we saw the movie Minions, and we wanted to talk about it because we thought it was a little strange.
This movie, at a certain point, Jay turns to me and I was like, where am I anymore? And Jay says, I feel like I'm on acid. Because that's what the experience of watching this movie was like. They're from the Despicable Me movies. There's Despicable Me 1 and Despicable Me 2, and they thought that they could make a whole movie out of them. And you know what? So did we. Because so did we. Like,
Yeah,
I was excited.
Yeah, I was like, I like these guys. They're funny. They're goofy.
The other thing is that I heard that Universal wanted the Minions to be their mouse.
Oh, really?
Yes. They kind of wanted,
wow.
Mickey Mouse is everywhere at Disneyland. They sort of wanted,
They want Minions to be the Universal Mickey Mouse.
yeah, like we found...
So they're like, we found our thing.
We found like a character and it's funny and they're
yeah,
cute.
well, have you noticed how many singular Mickey Mouse movies are out all the time? Because
a long
that
time
happens,
ago they
right?
had them,
Yeah, the Tugboat Willie, black and white, when it was great.
Yeah.
Again, you know what? It's funny you say that because this movie did have a lot of parallels to like a cartoon, like a Looney Tune cartoon.
Which are usually about 5 to 10,
5 to
15
10 minutes because
Yeah.
that's only how long you can do bits, because
Yes.
this movie is a lot of bits. But before we get into the specifics of the film, we always kick off our episodes with a film recap. So Todd, can you give us a film recap of the cartoon Looney Tune episode we just saw?
Sure. Okay. So
First thing, you put the mushrooms in your mouth, you chew them, you swallow them, you wait 30 minutes.
okay. Minions exist as an organism throughout time that choose to serve the greatest master. And over time, because they're apparently ageless and eternal,
ageless creatures, immortals.
They have served throughout time the apex predator in their environment, whoever is the biggest bad. So T-Rex, then came cavemen, and then, vampires and pharaohs, and at one point Napoleon. They always serve the biggest bad.
But one of their biggest issues with serving these masters is that they tend to kill every single master they serve. So when they were serving the T-Rex, they accidentally dropped it in lava. When they were serving Dracula, they accidentally pushed him into sunlight.
It seems like their greatest asset is
that they can kill their master.
The ability to ruin everything. At a certain point, they find themselves in a cave and live for a period of time without a master, which works for a period of time for hundreds of years. Sort of, it seems like, in a way to skip time between Napoleon and, let's say, someone like Hitler.
Because see, they serve all these world leaders. Their last world leader is Napoleon, and then the writers were like, yeah, we should put them in a cave for about a few hundred years.
Skip a little bit of that
bad
time
villain
period.
leaders for a while. Let's bring them back after World War II, and then we'll be fine.
Ho Chi Minh, Stalin,
Yeah.
Hitler. Let's just let's get rid of all
them in a
those
cave.
guys, But the only problem is that without a master, soon after hundreds of years of civilization and creating their own culture and all this kind of stuff, they grow weary of not having a master. So, Kevin,
The one minion stands up with the brilliant idea.
the warrior name of all kind of warrior names, Kevin.
Yeah, all their
stands up
names are just standard American
because
names.
American names have existed throughout time.
Throughout time, that's true.
From
because
from
we
the
know
beginning
from,
of time.
from time travelers. Right. They kept going back and they started naming things.
I guess we must invent time travel in the future.
Invent time travel
and go back
and leave minions in the past.
and with names like Fred
with
and
names
Kevin
like
and
Fred
Steve.
and Bob and Stuart and Kevin.
Guess who names? No, so Kevin stands up and he has a great plan. He wants to unite everyone in order to go find their boss, their big bad, or big bad.
Yeah.
And he enlists the help of Stuart and Bob, and the three of them go on a quest to find their new boss. boss, their new master. They find their way all the way to New York in 1968, where they find out about VillainCon, which is going on across the continent in the most evil place of all,
Orlando, Florida, 1968.
Where all the bad things happen.
Apparently.
The real reason that they want to go to VillainCon is that the star attraction is a woman named Scarlet Overkill, who is the biggest bad in the land, they learn. Scarlet Overkill, played by Sandra Bullock, wants henchmen. She's searching for henchmen. So they find themselves as Scarlet Overkill's henchmen, and she sends them on a quest to prove their might to steal the crown from the Queen of England in London, where she also has another castle that's sitting on a hill that just doesn't exist geographically in that region.
It's a really nice castle. I don't know why
it's an enormous castle
filled with gold.
That
filled
seems to
with
be
riches,
bigger than
the regular castle.
Yeah, and
also, what a very interesting test. Go steal the crown jewel for me as your test.
I am the biggest bad, and I'm giving you
the
idiots the biggest baddest task in the world. So they do so, actually, and at this point the movie takes a left turn. Bob, one of the minions, becomes king because he got the sword out of the stone. Scarlet wants the crown. They try to give it to her, make a parliamentary law to allow this to happen. She shuts them out of the castle and puts them in a dungeon, and then they try to get out.
One of them becomes a giant-sized monster who fights Scarlet in London. They beat Scarlet, then recrown the queen. Everybody in England loves them for this.
The last moment of the film is that Gru shows up and steals the crown. They find their next master, and the movie ends.
If you are confused, just so we're clear, when we said the film takes a left turn, that's right when the shrooms kicked in for you. So that's right when that happened. So guys, that was the recap for Minions, and that'll be taking us right into our Punch Up.
Punch Up.
Oh, Jay.
I'm sorry, I thought that was going to work.
You can't just punch someone in the face with a mallet.
Usually when that happens, birds come out and stars spin around people's heads.
Life isn't a cartoon,
I'm so sorry.
Jay.
These things, the drugs are wearing off. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I totally hit you with this.
With a giant mallet.
Yeah, I mean, do we need to go to the hospital?
I mean, I'll be fine. I have a squishy face.
I mean, definitely now.
I rebound.
Wow.
But that's the problem when you try to assert cartoon logic to everyday life. Which is the problem with this movie.
Which is the problem with Minions. Perfect, seamless transition, everyone.
Thank you very much.
We are professionals.
So, we like to start off the next segment with talking about
the pros.
The pros of what the movie had going for it.
And there were some fun pros in here.
Sure. I mean, listen, the Minions are really cute.
The language is adorable.
It's really adorable. It is a little weird that you can't understand anything that they're saying, and in a way, it's impressive, or rather, it would be impressive if you could understand the movie, given the fact that there is...
That you can't understand them.
That you can't understand them, but, unfortunately, the movie is kind of as incomprehensible as their language. But
before we get to those cons, the language is fun. The Minions are very cute.
They're very, very cute.
There's a lot of goofy bits with them hitting things, and I did really love the opening of you follow them first as these single cell organisms,
yes,
following these bigger cell organisms around, and then they evolve and the bigger things evolve. I loved that they kept accidentally killing all of their masters. I thought that was hilarious.
The other thing about this movie is the soundtrack. I know that sounds silly, but the whole movie, because it's set in 68, the entire film has a 60s soundtrack that is to die for. I was singing the whole movie. It's got Rolling Stones, The Who, The Turtles, The Monkees, The Beatles, the Spencer Davis Group, Kinks, anyone you can think of, really. It has every single great song.
I mean, a solid soundtrack.
Really fun. It almost seemed like anytime they didn't know what to do, they would just
play a song that
flip
we all
on
like.
A good song, and it's well, I guess the sequence is enjoyable because the song is great.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna like this scene because of this song.
Because basically it was a bunch of weird music videos for songs that we already liked.
That's right.
And another thing we really liked about the film were the fun gadgets. There were some really interesting, goofy things they did with that.
Because it deals with villainy and evil people.
So they have these cool villain gadgets.
Yeah.
One of them being what I really loved. It was called a lava lamp gun.
Yes.
Which was awesome because it looked like a lava lamp because it had but it shot lava, which I thought was a very funny, but they
so
looked
far far,
cool.
we have said that they look cute, there's cool gadgets, and it has a nice soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
And that actually ends our pros of the film. There wasn't a missing part there. That's it. So now going into our cons.
Yeah.
I was literally walking out of the theater being like, this was like a Looney Tunes film for an entire movie, but it didn't have any substance. It didn't have any story. It didn't have... All this film was mostly, it was just bits and bits and bits. It would like... It would do bits in almost every scene. It would be like they would pass a rat in the sewer, and then they were like, no, let's do a bit with that rat. Like, he loves the rat, and the rat's his friend now.
The rat doesn't really have anything to do with the story.
The joke's not even very funny.
Yeah.
There's bits in almost every inkling of this
movie. It's
movie.
bits on bits on bits on bits.
But no story.
Right.
It's just jokes.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first biggest thing we had a problem with this film was that it wasn't grounded.
Yes.
We didn't really have anywhere to stand as far as our characters or as far as where we were. To start with just the landscape of this film, these creatures, these minions, are the only ones of their kind.
Yes.
Nobody, I guess, has ever seen them before, or they have.
Except for the fact that at certain points during the movie, there are characters that it cuts back into a scene with the family that they find, and suddenly the girl is like, well, as minion, if I were a minion, I would want to do this. And we're like, wait a minute, like, they should be treated as an undiscovered tribe from like Papua New Guinea, you know, like no one's ever seen this tribe.
Nobody's ever seen. And throughout the film, some of them call them like, you weird little freaks or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's never any like, what are these things?
If you were in 1968 New York and you saw a small pill person that's yellow, that's wearing overalls, that has one eye, that would freak you out.
That would freak you out hardcore.
Unless this was in a world where like they have weird things like that. But that's the thing.
But they're the only things that we see that are weird.
And we don't know what they are and who knows who they are and all that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit ungrounded.
And that's one piece of it. The biggest thing in this film is England. England is treated as like the dumbest place on the planet.
You were saying it's like if a 5-year-old, if like you were to ask a 5-year-old to write an essay
about England, what they knew about England,
it would be like, well, they drink
a lot of tea.
There's a tea and there's a Big Ben. And there's a clown. Do I say clown already? It's just like
they only know, like, they know the Arthurian tale. So there's a sword in the stone. They know that there are queens. They know that people drink. There's pubs. They know that there's tea. And, like, that's it.
And they know that people wear funny hats.
And they wear funny hats.
Yeah.
And, and they, like, make a bunch of jokes about, like, oh, I'm British, so I'm very calm, even though, like, this is... like, this film just portrays England as, like, the dumbest country.
I was thinking the whole
outrageous.
Time, if Kate and William were showing their two sons now, what they would think of this movie that basically parodies England and the royal family, because it all deals with the crown and, you know, royalty and all that kind of stuff. But not even well at all. Like, it's not even like funny. Like, the way that they parody England is not even smart.
Like, I know it's a cartoon and like you can't have like real world ramifications in a cartoon, but like there isn't even seem like there's any consequences to really anything. Like, the people, like, there's civilians in this film, but like they don't seem to acknowledge villainy, or like at certain points when Bob becomes like the king, everybody's just like, yeah, you're the new king. Like, nobody's like, this guy's the king, like he has to be our king now. Like, that would be interesting if you're like, well, we have to do this because it's part of our laws. Like,
but
whoever
they
pulls
didn't
the sword,
want to do it.
And all the people were like,
England
well, I guess we have to follow these guys now. But all of the people are just like, yeah,
right,
Bob, yeah, like for no reason.
It's very willy-nilly with not only logic, but you really do need to understand like what kind of world you're getting into before jokes can really become funny. Because if you set up just a basic world and then you bring a joke into it, like a character that's very weird, then part of the humor comes from, well, nobody knows what that character is, and it's funny.
You've got the straight man and you've got the goofy character.
But if you have a world where you don't know if that strange character is strange or not, then we have no idea what's supposed to be funny.
Right. We have no test. We have no litmus test to see what is funny, what isn't, because we don't know what's normal.
So yet another ungrounded thing is our main characters. In the beginning of the film, we are introduced to the minions as a group. And they
all look exactly the same.
And they all look exactly the same. And there is one character that they single out. And in that moment, the narrator says, "This one's Bob. He is an idiot." And that was really funny. And I thought Like, that's an opportunity right there to take a character who's different from the pack, which they actually had in the film.
They were like, there's the ugly duckling, we're going to follow his journey.
And then create a bit of everyone was doing this, but Bob was doing this. But they didn't do that at all. And
to
then
be fair,
Bob
all
came
of
in later.
all of them are just as stupid as the rest of them.
And they're all the same. So, there's precedent for this in movies like Happy Feet. We all do this kind of thing, and this one penguin likes to tap his feet. But that's different than the pack. Honestly, think of essentially any animated film that has a world, but one guy is
a little different.
And he is the one that leads.
I mean, How to Train Your Dragon.
It's literally every single animated
Gully.
film.
You're right. Actually, almost every animated film
is
the main character's like, but there was one person who thought dragons could be nice.
Look at this goofy world. All these people act like this, and isn't that interesting? Meanwhile, there's a guy who's relatable to you because he's different and he doesn't exactly fit in, but he turns his differences and his weaknesses into his greatest strengths. That is a way to ground me as the viewer in a movie.
And to give us a point of view to follow.
Unfortunately, we get Kevin, who it's almost as funny as just that. It's just his name is Kevin.
His name's Kevin, and that's the entirety of his character.
His name is Kevin.
So as we said, the world completely ungrounded. We don't know what's bad. We don't know what's good when all these bad or good things can happen at the same time. There's no ramifications. The main characters...
We don't know who we're following.
We don't know who
we're
following. We don't know why we're following them. They're not relatable. They don't really have any personality or an arc. What they do differently or special doesn't make them stand out or solve our problems in any way. We just kind of watch and follow hijinks for an entire film. The second issue we had with this film was the conflict.
Yes,
which
conflict.
There was none of.
Okay, I don't know if any of you felt this when you saw the trailer for Minions, but there's an essential problem with the basic concept that is the Minions. The trailer says, and the movie says, here are the Minions, they live to serve. Well, that's interesting and that's funny, and we can play with like bad guys and all that kind of stuff. But when they're so bad at it and that's the only thing that they live to do, there seems to be an inherent problem with that because it's something that like negates itself and also is not very active because they're basically following someone else the whole time, unless the movie was about one of them standing up for themselves and realizing that they don't have to serve anybody.
Then that's a different take.
That's a different take, but that's not what they were going for. The problem that I have with the whole concept, that's I think an inherent problem with the concept, is that they are active, passive protagonists. They live actively to go find someone to sit around and let them do what they do best.
Exactly.
Which is sort of not really that interesting, unless, like we said, the story eventually becomes how someone turns their whole society around by showing them that they don't have to do that anymore. Then that's interesting.
Then that's an arc for those characters, but that's not in this film.
But we need to get to Gru, don't we?
The other part of that, this leads us there being no conflict also because of their interaction with in relation to the villain of this film.
Yeah.
The villain of this film is Scarlet Overkill, played by Sandra Bullock.
The phone-in of all phone-ins.
I mean, her only primary characteristic was that she was evil and that she wanted the crown, which, let's break that down. Getting the crown was something that she could have done, and she sent her minions to do. Was that like her final plan? Like none of that was clear. Like once she became queen of what? What was she going to do? Was she going to do something great?
Another ungrounded, illogical concept. Yes.
She had no. What was the end goal?
Right.
What made her so evil?
She said
what makes her so bad?
Something about like she was made fun of as a kid, and
also we never see this
and she was told that she was ugly. So having a crown will legitimize her beauty and stature, and everyone that ever made fun of her will see that they were wrong. That she explains that in a moment, but like
in like
the
one
problem
scene,
is that's like an hour into the film already in only like a 90-minute movie.
This is like makes sense for a character who's like an up-and-coming villain. Like she already has a castle. She already has gold.
Why does
statues.
She need henchmen?
Why does she need henchmen?
She's stolen the David. She's stolen like, she has the equivalent of Scrooge McDuck's entire gold fortune like in her living room. Why does she need 3 idiots to carry out her plan?
So we're going all around here.
Yeah.
The villain does not have any agenda. She doesn't have a real conflict with the minions. The film tried to create some sort of like, because they accidentally took the crown, which they didn't. Many times they just kept trying to give it back to her. It's just terrible. The interaction between the villain, I don't know what I'm trying to get to here. There's nothing to grasp here. So this film is not grounded. There is no conflict.
Yeah.
The villain makes absolutely no sense.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the film. So what do we do? How do we punch this film up?
Okay, to me, like, all you have to do, like, easy fixes, right?
Right.
You take these characters, and first of all, give me a character from the beginning who's different from the pack, who's interesting. And
if Bob's an idiot, let's follow
Bob. Let's make it Bob, okay? Bob is the cute one, and he's an idiot, and that makes him different. And if the whole thing with the minions is that they're so stupid that, like, they follow blindly, but they always fuck it up, then let's have that be part of the story. So let's say that Bob is accidentally elects himself as part of the search committee for the, finding the new boss. And they get to the bad guy, and the bad guy is trying to use them for their benefit. And
or maybe the bad guy could see, like, these are immortal beings that no one has ever killed. Maybe I can harness the power of the minions
and use
for
them
my evil plan.
Exploit them for my benefit.
Right. And now we have a conflict and a plot around the minions instead of just throwing them in like hijinks in every scene.
And whereas every single other villain before that they served sort of like appreciated that they were there because, you see the T-Rex and he's like, oh, thanks for like cleaning my skin. And maybe this one is like, oh, I can use these people to my advantage. Minions. And then he becomes, whoever this villain is, he or she becomes the villain because at a certain point, the minions realize like they're being used as like slaves or something like that, and basically it's their idiocy that ends up accidentally killing the master that they've sworn to serve, even though that master, little do they know, is actually trying to kill them.
Right.
And it all happens because the dumbest one, Bob, tries to passionately, serve this person, and in doing so just like completely ruins the day,
messes
and they
it up.
end up killing the boss that they, which is the same thing that they've done for time and over time and over. But
it's really their superpower is that they continue to kill their master.
So there's a way to do it. Maybe the story is inherent in the concept of they serve a villain. Well, who should be the villain of a villain? A hero, right?
Exactly.
So that solves the villain problem and the conflict that, you have a hero that's constantly getting in the way of foiling their master's plot. So they're constantly like trying to do their master's bidding, but this hero gets in the way. And then maybe the hero kidnaps their master and suddenly they need to become their own masters and think like their master, and sort of save the day thinking like, and they inevitably kind of fuck it up. They don't do it as well, but like it's their idiocy
they make it work their own way.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
now working collaboratively with their villain, they've actually grown and now are more of like a partnership with the villain instead of like this kind of like slave group that just follows them around aimlessly.
Which is quite strange. And we talked about this. That's basically the plot of Megamind, right?
Yeah, Megamind is exactly this, where you have your antagonist of the film is actually a hero.
Yeah, that's the movie where Will Ferrell plays Megamind, who's like, trying to be the greatest villain in the world, and he is constantly beaten by this lazy Superman hero played by Brad Pitt,
who's just like, he's so full of himself and like he's a character that how he's well portrayed. He's not like an evil hero, but he's portrayed well enough where like as an audience you're kind of like, I kind of hate you. You're like kind of a douche.
Everything comes easy to him, and
yeah.
it sort of makes you understand. It humanizes a villain, and it makes you understand why a villain might dislike a person like a Superman, because like, come on, you can't just be like everywhere at once.
Yeah,
and
I just flew here. I stopped your plan that you worked 2 months on. Sorry.
Yeah, so it does this really great job, and it's a pretty funny movie. It's not perfect, but it's a very funny concept. So here you go. You put the minions in that kind of world where they're serving this villain. The villain is sympathetic and is a hero, and the villain is this hero, and that's where we get conflict. That's where we get a great villain, and it's can be funny and all that kind of stuff. That's a great concept. But unfortunately, we don't
We
get
didn't
that.
get that movie.
Now, Jay, you had another concept, right?
So when
you were telling me about this in the parking lot.
Yeah, when this movie ended, there's a moment where the villain is about to like get away, the Scarlet Overkill. She's about to steal the crown.
Yeah, she comes back
and
for one
then
last,
She
thing.
gets frozen by none other than a young Gru.
Ah, yeah,
And then
Gru.
Gru takes the crown and flies away, and the villains chase after, thus leading into Despicable Me, how they meet Gru.
Right.
But to me, that actually was the only part of the movie that had like a little bit of like weight and importance. Where like at the end of the film, I kind of came out of this acid mushroom trip and I was like, oh, like there's like a relatable thing. Like this is a origin story of these minions, right?
Oh, so like you're saying
So like
in that moment, it's like, there's your movie.
Yeah. Just make that movie. Like don't start that movie at the end. Like, that opening scene where the minions just meeting Gru, start that in the first 20 minutes.
Now, how's that different from Despicable Me?
So the difference in Despicable Me, he's already a supervillain. He's already, number 2 in the world. He's already been working with the minions. Show us the first time of... So here are the problems.
I like
minions,
this.
The main origin is the minions always kill their masters, right? That's one problem. So we know putting them with... And we play that up in the beginning of the film. They always kill their masters.
Nice.
Maybe they realize that too. Like maybe that's why they've gone into their cave, because they're terrible at being henchmen.
They're
they
like
want
not
to,
good at their
but they're
job.
not good at it.
Yeah.
And Gru wants to be a supervillain. He's not yet. He's a kid or whatever.
But he needs help.
And he doesn't have what he needs to even be a supervillain.
Maybe he's a lonely kid who's made fun of all the time, and he doesn't have any friends.
And he somehow, maybe Bob, our idiot character, goes off by himself. Like nobody, like I'll figure it out or whatever. By some hijinks,
Gets
he goes
lost
off
somehow,
and
yeah.
he meets Gru.
Yeah.
And through their interaction, and this is where we start to bring the minions into meeting Gru, and like that's an origin story to tell. How do the minions first meet Gru? And also maybe Gru sees for the first time the value in these minions, and maybe the value is that these minions are really bad at serving somebody. So like maybe he's in competition with other young villains, or maybe he's in competition with this hero. He puts the minions he sends the minions to minion or hench for these other villains and other heroes, and they actually do what they do best, destroy their master.
But that's something that he only learns after a while.
He only learns after, like, some trial and error with them.
And it makes sense because, he's a lonely supervillain who's narcissistic, obviously,
Right.
and all this kind of stuff, and that's why he doesn't have any friends. And here are these guys, and the reason that it works as a relationship and a friendship is these minions are, like, all about whoever their master is, so he immediately gets showered with affection, but he also receives friendship. And at the moment where he sees that he can use these minions to his benefit and everything, and he sends them off and all this kind of stuff to just on basically suicide missions, to like mess something up. But what he starts to learn is he loses a lot of them. There's not that many left, or maybe they're all gone,
or he learns to value them, or even just using them in his own plot somehow foils him with the hero.
Well, then he has to go save them, is what I was getting to.
Right.
Like he has to go, like he learns, like he uses them and he's like, ha ha ha, now I have, the thing that I was looking for. Keep it the crown of England. Sure.
Yeah.
The king's crown, the crown jewels.
His first big win is he gets the
Right.
he becomes king of England or whatever it is.
And he was trying to get this crown jewels thing, and he succeeds, but then his minions are gone and they're all like somewhere trapped or whatever. And normally he would not care about this because he always considers himself a really bad guy and a heartless person, but just like in Despicable Me, he has to start caring for this kid. He actually does care for these minions, and he has to go save them again.
Save those minions.
That, unfortunately, kind of creates him as the main character, just like Despicable Me and Despicable Me 2, but...
There's a way to do that. You could also do the same thing we were describing earlier, where you can have, through somehow he does get foiled and the hero kidnaps him. And now we have the whole movie,
so flip it.
You flip it.
Yeah.
Like, for the whole movie, he's just been using them. He thinks they're the only thing they can do is this. So he has an arc, just like our minions have an arc. Their arc is they learn to, just like we described earlier, they learn to think for themselves, and for the first time be their own masters, which lets them help and get Gru out. And then Gru, for the first time, goes, maybe there's more to these minions than just what I first thought, yeah, they're really great at screwing up for whoever they serve, but maybe there's more value, because at the end of the day, you have to, because Gru does end up working with the minions into Despicable Me 1 and Despicable Me 2. Why would he keep them around if they always screw up their master? So you have to have some kind of growth, right?
Right.
So you have, by the end of the film, Gru realizes there is value to these minions if I give them the respect and I give them some leeway, right? Not all of the leeway, because they'll probably screw it up, but if I give them enough, like, what do you think would be the best way to build this this lava ray gun, Bob? And he's like, "Rah, rah," and he gets it kind of half right. And he's like, yeah, you're kind of there. Like, if there's a little bit of respect there, that's where that growth, that's where that arc comes from, where they land at this mutual place. And then you can follow the growth of both Gru and the minions simultaneously. It's not just about one or the other, it's about both of them. It's a buddy film between Bob and Gru.
Yeah, like all of these ways. Yeah, there you go. And all of these ways are really great ways to create some type of
story,
grounded, logical story that makes you from beginning to end, has a beginning, middle, and end, and allows you to understand like sort of the birth of the relationship between Gru and the minions. And not that that's easy, not that all of that is easy, but that is the way. I mean, just look at the greats, look at how they do it, and not that everyone has to emulate Pixar, but they do a pretty good job.
Do a pretty good job.
And
well, it's not just emulate the greats, just, read a book about storytelling. Read like, okay,
watch a few good movies.
Characters need to have an arc. Okay, arc.
And, just follow basically just a good story structure.
Yeah, if I really had the biggest note about this film, it would just be grounded in something. Whether in our characters or in the world, just ground us somehow. And I can let some of the other things go for zany cartoon reasons.
Right.
But like, guys, something. I got to be able to hold on to something.
That's right.
Anything.
That's right.
All right, guys. So that was our punch up, and that'll take us right into our smash up.
Smash, 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 smash up.
Welcome to Blockbuster Smash-Up. This is the game where Todd and I will smash two unlikely films together to make one horrendously, gloriously good film for you. For today's specific episode, we decided to do something interesting. Sometimes we throw themes into our game, and since this was an animated film, we decided our smash-ups had to be animated type films.
And yours is supposed to be the universally accepted good film.
Good film.
And mine is the universally accepted bad film.
Yep. And on the count of three, we're going to smash them together.
Great.
And they cannot be separated, unfortunately.
We're
sorry about your childhood or whatever we're about to ruin. So on the count of three, one, two, three. Rescuers Down Under.
Moms.
What? Mars needs moms? Mine's Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, God.
Okay. I love Rescuers Down Under.
So, Mars Needs Moms is this really regrettable movie that came out a few years ago.
Didn't it make like $0?
Did
it make like -$?
I think because it came out a few years ago, I think it made so little money because it scared the crap out of everybody, because the type of animation they used was really like creepy. It got into the valley of the uncanny in terms of like what humans look like, and it just looked creepy as hell.
So what's the premise of that film?
So the premise of the... So stupid. The premise of the movie is Milo is this little kid, and he gets annoyed with having to do his chores, and he wishes that his mother didn't exist or that he didn't need his mom. Martians kidnap his mother. Whoa, didn't see that coming.
Is it because they need moms, Todd?
And it's because they need moms on Mars. And then what transpires, he stows away on the ship, and what transpires is like this really weird movie about how on Mars they have this matriarchal society that like separates men from women, and the women are like the leaders, but they're desired for their childbearing, but also for like the fact that they can like command people or whatever. And so for some reason, I don't really know because it doesn't make any sense, they look to other worlds for mothers that can actually do the mothering part of like what they do, because they don't have that on their planet. And so they look to Earth. And
how did their species evolve without having some sort of...
Dude, it makes no sense. And Milo's mother was chosen for her ability to...
Mother so well.
No, for her ability to make Milo take out the trash.
Wow.
That's the whole premise of the movie.
All right, so to cleanse your palate a little bit, Rescuers Down Under is a fantastic animated film.
The sequel to The Rescuers.
Sequel to The Rescuers. So it's about two mice. They're in a romantic relationship. They eventually get married at the end of the film, but it's about them traveling to Australia to rescue a boy. They are these rescuers. They are part of a network of rescuers that help people around the world. They travel to Australia to save a boy who has been kidnapped by a poacher who's out there poaching these beautiful eagles out in Australia, and they're sent there to basically help this young boy and save him from this evil outback poacher who loves killing animals.
And who sends them?
They're sent by, there's like a network of like
Got it.
All over the world, these rescuers exist. They're mice or lizards or birds, whatever they are. There's just a network of a league of animals that are out there to just protect people.
Great.
And each other.
Okay.
And if someone gets in trouble, they, it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings where someone like lights a tower and then another person lights a tower. Like the message gets out. It's like beep beep beep. We need our top rescuers, our top spies, essentially, and they send these mice and they go to save the day.
Okay,
and
so
amazing film. So how do you tie in the rescuers
to
a film about moms to help an alien race take out the garbage?
So obviously we've got this kid, right?
Right.
And he lives in Australia.
Of course.
Which, oddly enough, in the outback, especially Ayers Rock, looks very Mars-like.
Yeah, it does.
And he gets lost in the outback.
Yeah.
Right? And there are these poachers that are trying to, like, get him. But they're not your typical poachers.
No, they're not.
They're actually Martian poachers.
Martian poachers? So they come to Earth to poach
humans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually the Predator.
And it's the Predator in the outback, and it's animated.
Makes sense.
It's terrifying, actually.
Very terrifying.
The children don't watch this.
So put the Disney animation, but then put a Predator in there.
It would be so adorable.
That would be an adorable Predator.
These poachers from Mars, they're taking scientific samples of different species. So they find, they're down under because they think marsupials are really interesting and they're on an expedition.
Not, of course.
And so they take koalas, they take kangaroos.
They're taking their trophies, right? Yeah. As poachers do.
They take platypi and they...
Of course.
And they,
platypi are all over Australia.
This kid Milo, this Australian kid Milo, is down there in the outback, down under, and he gets accidentally taken with them. But before he was able to do that, his mother sent out a telegram to the rescuers. And these mice...
so this is the true sequel to Rescuers Down Under. This is Rescuers... up there, or whatever you would call it. Rescuers
Beyond.
Rescuers Beyond.
Yeah. And so these mice at the last second stow away
on the alien
ship and get taken to Mars, where we find out all of this stuff that they're not poachers, they're from Mars, and like they have this really weird society where they're like
they need boys to teach them how to play, or to like teach them to like play games. Like maybe they're too serious and they realize without entertainment and without like fun and stuff, like they just don't know how to, they're just too stiff and they need kids to teach them how to have fun.
And these two mice go around basically saving this society, or saving this kid from this really weird Martian society. And with the help of these marsupial friends that they have captured, the Martians, they help free all of them, and somehow they make it back to Earth on one of the Martian poacher ships.
Yeah.
And they crash land in the Australian outback.
And that's it.
The mom says thank you and, shakes their tiny little hands.
That'd be adorable.
And it's called Mars Needs Marsupials.
It's called Mars Needs Marsupials? They need them for...
So in fact, by taking them back with them, the addendum and the epilogue to the story, and maybe in the sequel...
because of course there'll be a sequel.
Mars Needs More Marsupials. They actually helped collapse the government and the entire society on Mars. And these two poachers who used to be poachers come back to Earth. And
you've destroyed our society.
Well, it's kind of like Terminator, where in the second one they're like helping them,
and now they have to go back to Mars
and then
and actually give them marsupials,
and they have to basically Noah's Ark.
And they're like,
Mars.
Wait, you actually did need marsupials. They're like, yeah, we actually did.
Didn't you see the first movie? It was called Mars Needs Marsupials.
We were very serious about those marsupials.
And I know.
I know you took them back, and we understand, but like,
and we know that we were a little bit evil, and we stole you from Earth, and all of that. But can we just put that aside?
Like a government has gone under. Like people are starving right now. Like we just a couple marsupials, just a few. We're not gonna kill them.
We promise.
We cannot tell you what we do with these marsupials, but we need them. So if you could just let us borrow a few of them, we'll bring them back. We promise.
No, and there's something about which is Mars Needs More Marsupials.
And I mean that's a really good like family conversation to talk about like marsupials and how they interact with Martian economies, and like it's something that kids really need to know about at a young age.
It's an important part of life.
It really is.
You have the conversation about death, then you have the conversation about the birds and the bees,
absolutely,
and then you have the conversation about the Mars economy and how marsupials play an integral part of that.
It's a seamless Oh boy. This smash-up got real weird. Okay, so that's the smash-up, and that's our episode. That's episode 24 of Blockbuster Punch-Up and our review of Minions. We'll be posting a new episode every other week. If you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. That's arc with a C.
With a C.
With a C. Of course, you can email us any questions at blockbusterpunchup@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at partialarc. Of course, you can also follow Todd on Twitter and Instagram at TG11.
You could.
Yeah, you can.
You don't have to, though.
You don't have to, though.
Yeah, it'd be nice, though. I don't have any
But
friends.
if you could probably do that, that'd be great. All right. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode of Blockbuster Punch-Up.
Let's go home.